I landed 3 tech job interviews in a single week without applying to hundreds of jobs on LinkedIn. In fact, without clicking the apply button at all. And actually, it was more like 5 interviews in 2 weeks, but I had to actually turn down 2 interviews because I didn't have time to adequately prepare for those. So if you're in that situation where you're out there applying hundreds of jobs and not getting any traction, I really feel for you. The market is really tough. I sincerely believe I can help you just by sharing my experience. I'm having recently just landed my 16th tech job, meaning 15 job changes. So I've done this a number of times now. And I really just want to share my story, the tips and tricks that I've kind of developed over 23 plus years of basically being a job hopper. And hopefully that can help you in your job search, shorten that time to get to that interview. So when I first started my most recent job search, I did probably what a lot of folks did that were laid off. And that's what happened to me. I was laid off. I was sort of caught flat-footed a little bit because I didn't necessarily know what I wanted my next step to be. I knew kind of that I was wanting to slowly work myself out of the 9 to 5 and kind of start my own business and be my own boss. I had no idea what that looked like. I also knew that I wasn't super fired up about being a 100% kind of hands-on software engineer anymore. I wanted to bring back in some of that leadership, and I just didn't know what that looked like, though. And suddenly I was presented with, guess what? You need to decide right now. And so I actually wasted probably a good 2 weeks after being laid off, not really knowing what I wanted to do, how I wanted to start my job search. And then I probably wasted another, 2, 3, I don't know, maybe even 4 weeks searching for what ended up being the wrong types of jobs for me. And so this first tip really it's nothing to do with LinkedIn or anything. It's about having a career strategy, knowing where you want to go in your career. And this isn't just something that you're going to have inspiration for and suddenly have a clear path forward. It's something you need to think about. And if you're currently employed, no better time to think about it than right now, in case, to prepare for the eventual layoff. Not the eventual layoff, but the potential layoff. So one of the frameworks that helped me a little bit was this Ikigai, which many of you probably heard of. People like to post stuff like this on LinkedIn all the time and claim it as their own brainchild, but it actually really helped me as a framework to just get some direction for my career. So it's really the intersection of what do you actually like to do? What are you good at? Because those two things aren't always the same. What does the world need? And I kind of lump that in with what can you be paid for? So the intersection of these things, if you can kind of live in that space, you're likely to have a high level of satisfaction in your life. So the same thing with your career. When you're looking at the jobs that you're going to pursue, when you're starting your job search, before you even start clicking apply or start networking, figure out what this is, because this is what will give you that energy that you're going to bring to your social media posts, bring to your recruiter screens. You're going to bring that energy to your job search. So take a little bit of time and just get crystal clear on where you want your career to go, and that will help you define what you're going to pursue. Just sort of a side note here, if you are laid off like I was, you might not have the luxury of lining these things up, perfectly, and that's okay. And I was in the same situation. So you might need to be going after, instead of what you love, you might need to put that slightly on the back burner for what you are good at. Because what you are good at, that's what's going to, you need to make it stupidly simple to connect your skill sets to an open job for a hiring manager, for a recruiter. You need to really align that what you're good at piece, possibly over just what you happen to love. So once you have that career strategy kind of in your mind, pretty clear vision, what is the actual role name that you're wanting to go for, wanting to pursue in your next job, now is a good time to go and update your resume. I recommend the strategy first because then you don't have to make these multiple iterations and keep tweaking your resume endlessly. So what I want to do here is show you, this is my first resume that I started to send out for senior software engineer positions. And I want to kind of show you some of the mistakes I made with this first resume. And right off the bat, If I'm a hiring manager and you're coming to me as a senior software engineer, let's say full stack, you're React on the front end and AWS, and you've led projects and stuff. Nothing in the first top third of this jumps out at me. First of all, like what is software engineering leader? What does that even mean? It's not actually a job title in a company. So I don't know, what was I like a manager before? What was that? And then there's nowhere kind of like that jumps out, like what is my core tech stack? If you're an engineer in particular, the tech stacks that you work with, that you're most familiar with, it's important to put those front and center. They're not on here. Really, that's easy to see. I got to get down into the experience, and I start to see, okay, there's some React, there's some AWS. The other kind of issue with this is, like, what is this statement here? There's a human at the other end of every line of code. Like, that was me thinking I was being artsy and poetic. But your resume really isn't the time to do that. Like, you really want to make it stupidly clear, like, what you are, what your role is. The summary, now it's good that I had a summary. You want a summary at the top. It's really long. If I'm hiring a senior software engineer, there's some red flags. Like, there's an obvious detour in my engineering experience. So I'm trying to address the fact that I've kind of had coach and leader roles, and then I had engineer roles, and I'm trying to reconcile that in the resume. So mine may be a little bit different than yours, but it's like 3 paragraphs. It takes up a good chunk of the page here. And remember, you have 7 to 10 seconds of human eyes on this. So you really need to look at this from a hiring manager's perspective. If they've got 50 resumes on their desk and they're thumbing through them, you got to connect the dots for them. That's actually your job with the resume. The other issue with this resume is it's not optimized for ATS, so automated tracking system, or applicant tracking systems, or whatever the acronym stands for. Basically, the AIs that read your resume and kind of determine what % fit you are to the roles that they have open. The biggest issue is this buzzwords section over here. I've got a 2-column layout, and buzzwords isn't a heading that the AI is going to recognize. It really should be tech skills or something like that. And the fact that it's in a 2-column layout means that some of these ATSs are going to have a hard time automatically reading this. So really, this should be in its own section called tech skills or something. The next issue with this resume is these bullet points are written as tasks and not necessarily as what I accomplished. Now, this advice I kept getting over and over, and it was super annoying. And I didn't want to end up trying to make up numbers like improved retention by 25% by writing a unit test. Like, I didn't want to try to lie basically on about the outcomes that I achieved. But you can still add value statements, and I'll show you how I changed this. But for example, developed CI/CD pipeline with GitLab, automating build, test, deploy, release. It doesn't really, it's more like a task, right? It doesn't really show you like why I did that, what was the result of that. So kind of moving on, I'd say the last issue with this resume is, remember, I'm going for senior software engineer positions, but you only have to get down to like halfway to see my experience before you be like, what were they doing at JP Morgan Chase? Well, they were an enterprise transformation lead. Okay, that's not a software engineering position. And then I scan through these bullet points, and none of it has really anything to do with software engineering. So you can see that there are some issues with this. Some of the changes that I made, and it's still not perfect. I at least put full stack engineer kind of in the first sentence here. So as a full stack engineer and leader with 23 years experience. So right off the bat, you see I'm a full stack engineer. My tech skills, I moved up to the top, and I made them just really clear. And I added an item about AI because AI hype. So if you've done some AI work, even on the side, throw that on your resume as something that it just shows that you're willing to experiment and try new technologies and things. Back to the bullet points, the example I gave, develop fully automated CI/CD pipeline. And here's the value statement here: reducing previously manual efforts to a single click. So I didn't make up any percentages or anything, but I put what the value statement was in there. And that kind of sets me apart as not just a coder, right, but somebody who can bring value to the business in my work. And then in my some of my experiences, I highlighted the engineering pieces of that experience versus the the leadership or the coaching experience because I'm going for an engineer position. So I'm not lying on the resume, and I do not advocate lying. Be honest. But we have, in our positions, we have, like, a lot of times we're multidimensional. So highlight the experience that is relevant to that position that you're applying for. And that's kind of why I tweaked this a little bit to be more engineering focused, which it was true. I did some coding, I did some engineering coaching. So I'm highlighting that here. So that was really fast resume 101 stuff. This isn't a full video on resumes, but have a very clear summary statement, role summary, what you are. Put your tech skills up front and center. Make sure your formatting works for the ATSs. Make sure your experience has value statements in the bullet points, and make sure that the experience you are highlighting is relevant to that position. Okay, let's talk about LinkedIn for a second here. So I want to make sure it's crystal clear in this video. LinkedIn is the tool that I have used to basically maintain the network that has kept me employed. So it is the tool of job security for me. And it's kind of the backbone, basically, is what allowed me to stay employed through multiple layoffs and multiple job changes. So regardless of your feelings about it as a social network, please take this seriously. Use this platform to your advantage. And like I said, this is how I've maintained employment pretty much with no gaps except for most recently. So you don't have to be one of those cringy LinkedIn posters. And I'm going to talk about, after profiles, we'll talk about how to post on LinkedIn and stuff too. So really quick on profile, think of this as really just your online resume. So you don't really have to overthink it. We're just going to call out a couple key sections here that I think is important. Again, myself as a hiring manager, every resume that I decided we're going to interview, I go and look at their LinkedIn profile. And I kind of scroll through and look at their experience. I look at their posts. So it is definitely something that hiring managers are using. So the profile pic itself, I recommend actually having a somewhat professional picture up here. So not necessarily like, picture from your college days, at a bar or something, or your 20-year-old badge picture from your first job out of college, which is exactly what I used to have. You could see where I actually, with a mouse, cut my head out of the background, or cut the background out, all pixelated. It's like, you can tell I don't really look like that anymore because it's a lot younger looking than I am now. Get a decent picture of yourself. You don't have to be, you can see I'm in a t-shirt here. I have some decent lighting, same light that I use for the channel. And I just took a couple shots, some smiling, some looking serious, and I settled on this one. So just have a decent profile picture. The second thing I want to call out is your headline itself. Keep it concise, and kind of like your summary statement in your resume, it should basically say what is the main role that you are. So this is mine, software engineer, servant leader. It's not perfect, but I wanted to call out the two things that I think are what I bring to the table, which is engineering experience and being a leader and being a manager, but also having that servant leader stance. This one I like as well. Web developer, React, Laravel, PHP, WordPress. It's super clear, right? It's super clear from his headline alone, like what role he is. One thing I don't recommend is listing out all your certifications and your headline. Now, this person actually has a really good profile, super experienced. So I'm not being critical of them as a person or anything, but this headline here is something that I would change. So you don't want to just itemize all of your experience or all of your certifications. This should be highly experienced product professional, licensed in ITIL, or something that's shorter than what this is. When you scroll down, the next thing that they're really going to see is, that's the analytics, the about screen, which is kind of like that summary on your resume. It's a little more detailed. Mine's kind of like not super great. It's a little long, but this should give you your human touch. This should bring some of your personality to the table. What things are important to you? What would it actually be like to work with you? Not just purely a list of your tech skills. So what I decided to put in here, which I don't know, I was on the fence with this, but for example, my stance on software craftsmanship, how software should be built, is with a quality first mindset. And so I put that in here. Software craftsmanship is non-negotiable to me, but engineering is all about developing solutions that are fit for purpose. So what I'm trying to convey is I have a lot of experience I believe in quality and doing things the right way, but I'm not going to hold the business hostage for my perfect picture perfect quality. I understand that it's also a business, and sometimes we have to deliver. The next section, which we're going to talk about here in a second, I also look at this as a hiring manager. So the activity of you on LinkedIn. So I'm going to go through here and look at what you're posting. And if you're basically a troll or a shit poster, I'm not going to interview you. I want to see, it's totally fine to have debates and have your opinions out there. But remember, this is basically a job site, right? Social media for job seekers. So you want to be professional. And then I might click into some of your posts that you wrote to see kind of where you stand on things. The experience then, it's just copy paste from your resume. Don't overthink this. They're going to mostly use your resume at that point for your experience. So those are the main sections that I would look at. So once you get your profile into a good place, now I really want to show you how to basically the meat of how to use LinkedIn to help you find a job without having to go and just mass apply to 1,000 jobs, which is actually happening out there. And I went through that as well, and I had really no luck with cold applications. So remember, the cold applying is dead. If you want to use LinkedIn to help you find a job, it's all about developing a network. And so the thing I wanted to kind of show you is how I went about doing that. So really the first thing you need to do, if you have not done this already, go back into every single job that you've had. And it's easier once you've kind of created your profile, because you can just click into, I can click into this company and LinkedIn will automatically show me the people who work at the company or who possible second order people who have worked at the company prior. And so I'm going to go through here and I'm literally just going to connect anybody who I've ever said hello to, shaken hands with. I'm going to send them a connection request, maybe put a little message in there, and just build out the network of people that you've actually worked with and interacted with in the past. So what this is going to do is these are people that you've actually seen or been on calls with. They kind of know you, and you might not think it's a big deal. But when I'm a hiring manager and I'm looking through resumes, I am going to prefer if someone says, oh yeah, I used to work with them. It doesn't even really matter how much they work with them. If they know them and they worked with them in the past and they were a good person, then I'm automatically going to prefer them. I'm automatically going to move their resume to the top. So this is how referrals work. So just be aggressive about this. Go through, send all those connection requests. I did this and it took me days, and I went from something like 1,400 connections up to like 2,300 connections. So you can tell how many connection requests I sent. So once you have fleshed out your network, now this is where the real value of having the network starts to come into play here, because as opposed to just going through and cold applying to jobs that you think you're a good fit for, now you have this network of people that know who you are, and they all are working at companies too. There's a pretty good chance that there's a job open at a company that they're working at that you might be a good fit for. So this has got a lot of manual work here, but you go through your entire network, and I just, go into your connections here, and anybody that you've worked with and they know who you are, send them a message. Tell them, hey, I'm in the market for a new job, and I would appreciate it if you could be a referral, if you'd be comfortable with that. I really appreciate your help. When you click on their profile, you can go into their current job and look at that employer's open jobs. If there's a specific job that's even better, link that job to in your message. So say, hey, I saw that your company has this job open. Would you, and we worked together in the past, would you mind being a referral for this? And so that helps you get a foot in the door. Now you have a person who actually works at that company. You can kind of do this in reverse as well. If you find a job you're a fit for and you don't have any connections there, you can kind of look for second order connections and DM them. I actually did that, and I didn't have any luck personally doing that. Nobody actually replied to my DMs who I hadn't already worked with or was acquainted with in the past. So it doesn't mean it wouldn't work for you, but it might work for you. So this is exactly what I did to end up getting 5 interviews in 2 weeks, was through my DM campaign to existing connections that I had made and with people that I had worked with or were acquainted with in the past. So here's an example of one. This is a person that I'd never even actually worked with, but met at a conference and I knew through another coworker. So I sent her a message and I said, hey, you may remember me. I actually interviewed for a position at her company like years ago and didn't get that job. So it was a little weird reaching out to her, but I decided to swallow my pride, reach back out. So, hey, this is who I am. The second part is make some sort of reference about either a post they just made or a recent job change they had. And this seems like you're being manipulative. Try to be genuine as much as you can with this. So, hey, I saw that you had a recent job change. Congratulations on that. Hope it's going well. Something like that. Or I saw your last post on cybersecurity and thought it was really interesting. I read the link. So something like that to kind of bring it back to like, hey, I'm actually interested in maintaining this connection. And then your kind of call to action here. So I pivoted back to engineering a while ago. So looking for engineering or EM roles currently. Let me know if you love to be considered. So she responded very nicely. Sorry to hear. I don't think I have anything for you, but I'll keep you in mind. So this was on like a Monday. Literally 3 days later, they opened an engineering manager position at their company, and she thought of me and actually sent me the link to the job and gave her recruiter a heads up that I was going to be applying. So like walked me right in almost to an interview that if I hadn't sent this message, this is not somebody that I talk to very often. This is somebody I met like 5 years ago. And so I got that foot in the door through kind of maintaining a good professional network. I repeated this 4 other times, this same exact process. Send a DM. How's it going? How's it going at this job? I saw you move there a few years ago. The same formula, basically. Swallow your pride, tell them your situation, and ask them if they can be a reference. And like I said, after I got so many interview requests after going through this, it was days of this, DMs. And most people didn't respond, but I ended up with 3 interviews in 1 week, and then 2 I had to turn down because I just didn't have the time to do it and give the interviews the focus they needed. So this totally worked for me. Now, you do have to put in the reps to build that network, but this is how job searching works in the current state. So the other piece that's really important for LinkedIn to essentially help you get a job, which is the whole point of we're using LinkedIn, is the social media aspect of LinkedIn. So it's not just a connection manager and a network manager, but it's a social media network. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about is how posting on LinkedIn actually got me a lot of views. And when I said I had 5 interviews through DMing, that actually wasn't, I was a little bit off in my math there. 2 of those interviews came directly from somebody who saw a post and liked a post and interacted with it, and then referred me to an open position that they had through seeing my posts. So it was the DMs as well as posting useful content on LinkedIn. So, and remember too, as a hiring manager, I'm going through your profile and I'm actually going to look at what you've posted as well, just to kind of get an understanding of the kind of like professional that you are, the kind of work you do, the things you stand for. So how I do LinkedIn posts, then this one got, this is the actual post here that somebody I used to work with became a CTO of a company, saw my post and liked it, reached out to his recruiter and had the recruiter reach out to me directly just from a post that I made. And that's where I work currently. So that actually landed me a job. This post landed me a job. So when you're writing a LinkedIn post, don't overthink it too much. Just start posting, especially if you haven't been posting before. It'll take a while, but LinkedIn will start putting your posts in front of people and you'll start getting likes and you'll start getting comments. Interact with the comments. Eventually you'll build kind of a little bit of a following there. So the way I write posts, I want it to be, valuable and also entertaining to read through the post. The first 2 sentences basically is the hook. My hook here, the hardest thing about engineering isn't engineering, it's pragmatism. So right off the bat, it's like, okay, well, what does that actually mean? I'm kind of curious now. And then my next sentence here is a bug in my code resulted in a helicopter catching on fire, which is 100% true. And you probably have all kinds of stories, war stories from your days that you can share. And these are good ways kind of to hook some interest. So what you want them to do is to click to see more, right? That's kind of like if you're on YouTube, the thumbnail is kind of like creates curiosity and you click it. This is the click here, the see more. So when you click, what you first want to do is make sure that's not like a huge wall of text. Now, my post here is a little bit too long, but also it's broken up into really kind of digestible bites. Really try to keep it like 3 lines per paragraph here. So it's really digestible and scannable. And then I get into the post. We don't have to talk about that here. This post actually took me a few hours to prepare for. I was in OneNote, kind of just brainstorming and condensing down. I could have condensed it down even further. But I did prepare for this, like if you were doing a presentation or something. So it wasn't just me brain dumping into LinkedIn. I really prepared for it. Wanted to make it interesting and engaging. One of the comments I think got me the eye that got me the job was this last sentence here: quality and sustainability matter, but time exists and so does money. Engineering is finding the balance. So right there, you can tell my stance on engineering is it's about trade-offs. It's not about just, beautiful works of art in the code. Now, I am a quality-centered engineer leader, but I also understand that we're building software for a reason, and time does matter often in those reasons. So if you're a CTO, that's kind of what you want, I think, in your engineering manager. So anyway, that's what kind of got me the important views. And you can see I got a good number of impressions here. And just another example here is the hooky kind of first statement here: predictability is the most insidiously destructive force in software development. So making a bold statement, even somewhat controversial, and then you go into the post and you back it up. You back up your opinion. You do want to have opinions in your post. You want to get a reaction of some sort. Even people who disagree with you, that's fine. Go into the comments and treat these people with respect. This isn't Twitter, right? This isn't a chance to get into a flame war. If there's somebody says something you disagree with, or they disagree with your post, try to engage them in that debate. Again, hiring managers are going to look through this and they're going to see how you behave online. And that's what they're going to extrapolate how it's going to be like to work with you in the real world. So just keep that in mind when you're posting on LinkedIn. And the last thing I'll say about posting on LinkedIn is show your support for either people or causes or technologies or whatever. Repost content is important to you. There's so many people been laid off that are really just top quality people, and I want to help them as best as I can. So I'm reposting their hey, I was laid off posts. So you can see that here. One of the best bosses I've had, super skilled at team leadership. I'd highly recommend connecting. Those were honest words. And you can see where my post of his post got 2,481 impressions. So that's eyes on his profile too. So I was able to help him get some eyes on his profile as he's looking for his next job. I said that was the last thing, but there's really one more thing I want to talk about when it comes to posting on LinkedIn, and that is sort of what not to do. And I have an example here of a post that on the surface doesn't seem like a trolling post, but in my opinion is not the kind of post that you want to, it's not the kind of attention that you want to attract on LinkedIn. It's not just about getting likes, because like any social network, LinkedIn can become this echo chamber of other people who are pissed off about something just as much as you are, and they like it, and you get this snowball effect. Imagine a future boss seeing your post, or imagine at an interview and somebody going through your posts and having you talk about them and justify why you posted in a certain way. So that's how you want to show up online. In this post in particular, this person was quoted and the quote was taken completely out of context, or there wasn't enough context put around this quote to say like why they had this stance. And then this other comment here: our industry is a complete joke for the most part, let's be honest. Is that someone you would want to interview who has that sort of a negative feeling about the industry? It's full of cowboys and amateurs happily banging out their tune of drums. This is a post to just stir up likes. So you can see where I kind of tried to call him out on it a little bit. So it wasn't horrible. It was kind of an interesting post. I went through, I asked for additional context, and this person didn't even provide it. They ignored me in the comments completely. So that's the other thing not to do, is if you have somebody who questions you or who disagrees with you, engage them in the comments. Don't just ignore them. Remember, LinkedIn isn't about you just expressing yourself. It's about building a network to help you find and keep a job, like job security. He didn't reply to my comment here to link the actual post. Somebody else did. I read the linked post and found that indeed I was correct, that there wasn't enough context provided. And it was actually a really interesting topic that there could have been a lot of discussion about had this person posted in a different way, but instead of just trying to farm for likes. So hopefully by kind of following some of these tips, you're actually going to get more recruiter calls. And that's what you want to do. And what I recommend is take every single call. Even the ones, now you'll get a feel for the ones that are truly spam. And many of them are legit jobs, but they're not necessarily, it's not going to go anywhere. Take the call. Practice your pitch, because when you're going to get some legit recruiters who are going to call you based on an application or based on a referral, and you want to really kind of nail that initial conversation, because the recruiter really is the first line of defense. They're going to say, yes or no. Now, mostly those calls are kind of like intake. It's do they have the right experience? Is there's a salary like in line? And on that note, on salary, because there is ongoing salary deflation, I'm pretty sure multiple times I talked myself out of an interview because my salary demand was essentially, it took me a while to learn this, but it was too high. Like I was now above market, and the market has been deflating somewhat. So now if you're in a situation where you can't take a pay cut, then that's good. You don't want that job anyway. But keep that in mind. If you need a job and you might need to be a little bit more flexible in that salary, don't shoot yourself in the foot by asking for too much up front. But anyway, take every single one of those calls. Use it as a chance to practice your pitch, and you never know what kind of opportunity might come out of that. So all of that said, obviously I had some success getting to that interview using some of all these techniques and stuff that I've talked about. But I had to learn the hard way as well. And like I said, this is not my first time out there looking for a job. And I made a couple of pretty big mistakes. Some of them I'd alluded to already. The first one really was going after jobs that I really wasn't qualified for. As I said, I was going for staff engineer positions because kind of second mistake that was wired in with this was I refused to accept the salary deflation that was happening, because we were kind of, salaries kind of shot up there in 2022 with the Great Resignation, and companies couldn't find and retain talent. And I took advantage of that. I had got my salary up to kind of where the market was at the time, and now it's starting to deflate. Now, so what did I do? Instead of accepting that the market had changed, I started going after higher level roles that were still paying what I was making. And I actually was not qualified. I'm not qualified to be a staff level engineer in like large scale distributed systems engineering environments. And so I had a few pretty bad initial tech screens. It was pretty embarrassing. And I kind of realized like, okay, I really am not qualified for this. Similarly, in another vein is it took me too long to accept that pure remote jobs they're not a thing of the past, but they're much fewer and farther between than they used to be. I really kind of shot myself in the foot, so to speak, because I was purely looking for 100% remote positions. And it took me a while to accept the reality. Now, once I accepted the reality, that was when I started to get more traction. And a few of those interviews that I took were for hybrid positions. But I had to kind of accept the truth and the reality of the situation. Another issue I ran into was just kind of staying so frustrated. I was just with the cold application process. I was applying for jobs. There was a few of them. It was literally a perfect fit for. I mean, it was like they wrote the job description for me, and I was perfectly in alignment with the company and the vision and where they were as a company. And I knew and still know that I would have been an amazing fit, and I couldn't get a foot in the door. I was cold applying. I was DMing people, and they wouldn't respond. Completely ghosted through the application process. Not even an automated rejection, And So that was just super frustrating. Now, what that led me to was to realize that I'm putting so much effort into cold applying, I need to change my approach and go back to what I know works, which is relying on the network, which is this whole video. So some of those failures kind of led me to that pivot. I've alluded to this other way I failed initially, but in another video, which I'll link to, I talk about how my head really wasn't on straight after my layoff, and I was not in a good headspace. And it took me a while to kind of accept the way things are, to kind of calm down and just start taking positive action after my layoff. So not checking in with myself, starting the job search before I was really ready and in a calm headspace, that was a big mistake. I ended up wasting a lot of time and kind of swirling in frustration with that. And then just the time. If you do happen to be laid off right now, and I know some of you who are watching this are in that situation, I'm really, I feel for you so much. And it really is a tough market. Don't let the numbers gaslight you into thinking, or the mainstream media convince you into thinking that something's wrong with you. That this market it's the worst market that I've ever seen in my 23 years. Now, it will recover. Jobs will come back, including entry-level positions. I don't think AI is coming to steal all of our jobs, but it is going to be a long process. Plan on at minimum 3 months for your job search. 9+ months is not unheard of, even for people who are qualified and who are, out of their junior years. So that was another thing that, where I failed in this was just thinking it was like before, where I could just snap my fingers and have a job tomorrow. And it was totally different this time around. But I ended up getting a job in the same way I did all the way in the past, was leaning on my network. So hopefully you can do the same and have some success with that way. As I mentioned, if you do happen to be laid off, I did a video specifically on how to kind of effectively be laid off. There's some overlap with this video. There's some other ways I'm talking about sharing my experience with being laid off. It's up here wherever YouTube decides to put it. And really just thank you so much for watching this far. I hope it was helpful. I tried to put all of my experience into this video. It's going to be a fairly long one. I'm a small channel. If you did like it, hit like. I would love to have some comments. Tell me about what your experience has been, anything that has worked or has not worked for you. Would love to hear that in the comments, and I'll reply to every single comment that I get. So again, thank you so much. And just remember, the software industry is broken, but that doesn't mean that we have to be. Thank you so much, and see you in the next one.